Gentlemen, let's begin with this truth. Understanding female psychology is not about manipulation. It's about awareness. It's about knowing how women think, feel, and respond, so you can navigate relationships with clarity, not confusion. Most women are highly emotional beings. This doesn't mean they are irrational or weak. Far from it. But their psychological makeup is more attuned to emotional cues, social dynamics, and relational nuances. One of the most overlooked aspects of female psychology is the deep craving for emotional validation. It's not just about compliments or affection. It's about being seen, heard, and understood on an emotional level. This validation feeds into a woman's sense of security, identity, and connection. From a young age, many women are socially conditioned to value how they are perceived emotionally. Are they liked? Are they understood? Are they appreciated for who they are? This creates a subconscious pattern where external validation becomes a form of emotional nourishment. Now, when a man constantly provides this validation, always reassuring her, always affirming her choices, constantly making her feel good, there is a momentary benefit. She feels safe, she feels wanted, but here's the trap. Over-validation leads to emotional dependency. The more she receives it freely, the less she values it. It's human nature. What comes easy is rarely appreciated deeply. So when a man showers a woman with attention and affirmation without requiring anything in return, without boundaries, he slowly starts to lose her respect. She might not even realize it consciously, but emotionally she begins to see him as predictable, safe, and maybe even boring. The real power lies in balance. When a man knows how to be emotionally available without becoming emotionally dependent himself, he creates tension, a healthy, addictive tension. When he gives validation sparingly, when it's genuine, earned, and not thrown around carelessly, it becomes valuable. She notices it more, she feels it deeper, she chases it. Think about it like this. Imagine a rare wine served only on special occasions. It's appreciated, talked about, and remembered. Now imagine that same wine poured every single day with every meal. Eventually it becomes ordinary. That's exactly how emotional validation works in relationships. Women will often test men, sometimes without even realizing it. They'll question things, provoke minor arguments, or withdraw affection, not necessarily to be manipulative, but to gauge emotional consistency. They want to see if the man they're dealing with remains firm in himself, or if he crumbles to seek their approval. If he bends too quickly, gives in too easily, or constantly tries to fix her emotions, she loses a sense of his masculine grounding. On the other hand, if he remains calm, unshaken, and only validates when it's appropriate, when he truly means it, he becomes magnetic. That strength of presence, that emotional selectiveness, is incredibly attractive. What many men fail to realize is that women don't want you to solve all their problems. They want to feel understood. They want to feel emotionally seen, but not coddled. There's a huge difference between being emotionally intelligent and being emotionally submissive. A high-value man learns this distinction. He knows when to offer warmth and when to pull back. He doesn't validate her every emotion just to keep her happy. Instead, he validates what is real, what aligns with his standards, and what adds to the relationship. This keeps her curious. It keeps her respectful. And most importantly, it keeps her emotionally engaged. So when you understand that emotional validation is one of the deepest psychological needs for many women, you also learn that the overuse of it is a silent relationship killer. Restraint becomes power. Emotional discipline becomes respect. And when a man masters the art of giving just enough validation to build connection, but not so much that it becomes meaningless, he stands out in a world where most men are either emotionally absent or emotionally enslaved. Even the most confident woman has an underlying fear of being replaced. It's a subtle but deeply rooted aspect of female psychology. This fear is not necessarily rooted in insecurity. It's evolutionary. Women are biologically wired to seek long-term security, stability, and protection from a man they deem valuable. Historically, her survival and the survival of her offspring were tied to the consistency and commitment of a strong male partner. That wiring hasn't disappeared, it's just evolved into a psychological reflex. So when a woman is with a man she perceives as high value, whether because of his looks, status, intelligence, charisma, or leadership, she unconsciously wants to secure him. She doesn't want to compete for his attention, but she becomes highly aware when there's a possibility that she's not his only option. That's why one of the greatest mistakes a man can make is to act like he has no other choices. When a man becomes overly available, needy, or excessively accommodating, he kills that subtle tension that fuels attraction. The fear of being replaced disappears, and with it, the excitement. On the flip side, when a man moves with quiet confidence, has strong boundaries, and isn't afraid to walk away, he triggers something in her psyche. He becomes unpredictable. He becomes someone she can't fully lock down, and that creates an emotional urgency. She starts to think, what if he finds someone better? What if I lose him? And those thoughts drive her to invest more, to try harder, and to seek reassurance, not through begging, but through showing up with more affection, attention, and consistency. You see, this isn't about playing games. It's about maintaining your masculine frame, a man who is on his purpose, who prioritizes his goals, who doesn't make a woman the center of his emotional universe. He radiates value. He shows, without saying a word, that he doesn't need her. He chooses her, and that choice becomes powerful because it's not based on desperation. Women sense this difference. They can feel the contrast between a man who is with her because he has no other options and a man who is with her in spite of having many. When a woman starts to feel too secure, when she feels like the man will never leave no matter how she acts, she can start to take that man for granted. Her behavior shifts. She may become colder, less appreciative, more entitled. Not out of malice, but because the dynamic no longer excites her. That subtle fear, the possibility of losing a valuable man, keeps her emotionally present. It keeps her desire alive. That's why the phrase, "don't be afraid to walk away," is more than just advice. It's a philosophy. When a man shows that he values himself enough to walk away from disrespect, disinterest, or emotional games, he earns a woman's deep respect. And that respect creates attraction. It's important to note that this fear of being replaced doesn't mean women want to be in toxic relationships or feel insecure all the time. What it means is that women are drawn to men who don't make them the center of their identity. The moment a man puts a woman on a pedestal and centers his life around her approval, he becomes replaceable. Ironically, because now he's no longer the challenge, the mystery, or the strong masculine energy she first fell for. He's the guy who gave up his edge for comfort, and comfort, when overdone, turns into complacency. This is why even married women, deep into long-term relationships, can feel threatened or re-engaged when their husband suddenly levels up. He starts going to the gym again. He begins dressing sharper, improving his income, expanding his social circle. Now she sees other women noticing him. That quiet fear returns, not because she's insecure, but because she's biologically wired to protect her emotional investment. If another woman might take what she has, she becomes more invested in protecting it. That's human nature, and it doesn't make her bad. It makes her real. So for men, the lesson is this: never lose your edge. Never give up your value just to keep a woman around. The more you grow, the more options you attract. And when you subtly show that, not through words but through lifestyle, presence, and ambition, you maintain the kind of energy that keeps a woman emotionally on her toes. She doesn't want to feel like she's in competition, but she wants to feel like she got a man that others wish they had. That's the dynamic that keeps attraction alive long term. Let's talk about another key element of female psychology that most men overlook: women's craving for emotional roller coasters. At first glance, this might sound odd or even unhealthy, but it's rooted in deep psychological and biological drivers. Women are far more emotionally driven than men. They feel things more deeply, more intensely, and more frequently. Their nervous systems are wired to respond strongly to emotional stimuli. This isn't a flaw. This is part of what makes them empathetic, intuitive, and socially aware. But it also creates a hunger for emotional stimulation. In simple terms, consistent peace and emotional stability, while valuable, can start to feel flat over time, unless it's balanced with subtle emotional highs and lows. This is why so many women are drawn to emotionally unpredictable men: the bad boy archetype, the mysterious loner, the man who's hot and cold, not because they want to be hurt or confused, but because those dynamics create tension. And tension creates excitement. Think about it. Why do so many women get hooked on drama-filled relationships even when they're toxic? Why do they stay in emotionally volatile situations even when they know it's not good for them? It's because those emotional ups and downs mimic addiction. It's like a dopamine cycle. The withdrawal, followed by a surge of emotional closeness, creates a chemical high. It's not logical, it's psychological. Now, this doesn't mean you should become toxic or manipulative. It means you should understand how attraction works on an emotional level. A woman needs to feel in order to stay connected. If she always knows what you're doing, how you feel, what you're going to say, and how you're going to respond, eventually she disengages. Predictability becomes the enemy of excitement. You become more like a routine than a romantic partner. That's why many women initiate arguments out of nowhere or test you for no obvious reason. They're creating friction to feel something. It's not logical, but it's real. A masculine man learns to navigate this without overreacting. He doesn't become emotionally volatile himself. He remains steady, but he introduces mystery. He pulls back when necessary. He surprises her, not with gifts or words, but with presence, unpredictability, and discipline. Maybe he disappears for a few hours without explanation. Maybe he shifts his tone mid-conversation. Maybe he holds eye contact longer than usual without saying a word. These are subtle shifts that create waves in her emotional experience. They keep her engaged. What makes this more powerful is the contrast. When a man is mostly calm, grounded, and stoic, but occasionally shows sharp emotional presence or intensity, it hits harder. It's the difference between a calm sea and a sudden wave. It awakens her. She feels alive, she feels the polarity, and that polarity is the fuel of attraction. The mistake many men make is trying to make everything smooth, easy, and comfortable all the time. They avoid conflict, they over-explain, they kill mystery in the name of transparency. But what they don't realize is they are flattening the emotional landscape. And once that happens, she starts seeking stimulation elsewhere, not necessarily from another man, but through arguments, social media drama, or even internal overthinking. So the goal is not chaos, the goal is emotional presence with layers. Show different sides of yourself, be calm but passionate, be available but not predictable, be loving but not always easy. This emotional dynamic keeps her locked in, not because you're manipulating her, but because you're giving her what she actually responds to, even if she can't put it into words. Emotional roller coasters aren't about breaking her down, they're about awakening her senses. A man who understands this controls the rhythm of the relationship, and rhythm, more than anything, determines how long she stays emotionally invested. Many women are deeply influenced by social comparison, whether consciously or unconsciously. This isn't about vanity or superficiality. It's a deep-rooted psychological mechanism tied to self, worth, social validation, and perceived status. From a very young age, girls are taught, directly and indirectly, to evaluate themselves based on how they measure up to other women. Whether it's physical appearance, relationship status, career achievements, or even the lifestyle portrayed on social media, the comparison is constant. Society feeds this by glorifying ideal images, perfect relationships, and curated lives. For women, these comparisons create internal benchmarks. Am I attractive enough? Am I desirable? Is my man someone other women want? These questions shape their sense of self-worth. What's crucial for men to understand is that this social comparison doesn't just affect how a woman views herself. It heavily influences how she views her man. If you, as a man, carry status, ambition, confidence, and social appeal, she feels like she has something other women would want. That raises her own value in her eyes. She sees you as a trophy, as proof that she's winning the unspoken competition among women. On the flip side, if you start to lose your edge, if your life becomes stagnant, if you lack ambition, or if other women no longer show interest in you, her perception of you can begin to shift, not necessarily because you changed, but because in her social landscape, your value dropped. This is why women often become more affectionate, more invested, and even more possessive when other women show interest in you. It's not purely jealousy, it's a status recalibration. If other women want what she has, she feels validated. It reinforces that she chose well. This dynamic also explains why some women lose interest in men who become too available, too eager, or too settled. When you stop being a challenge, when your life revolves around her instead of your goals, you stop being the man she once admired. She may still love you, but the emotional high starts to fade. Women are deeply sensitive to perception. They don't just care about who you are. They care about how the world sees who you are. That's why a man who is respected by others, admired by peers, and desired by women often maintains his partner's attraction without even trying. It's because he's constantly validating her choice through his external value. This also explains why women push their men to level up. They want to be with someone they can show off, someone who makes them feel proud, someone whose presence elevates their own social standing. Understanding this doesn't mean you need to pretend to be someone you're not. It means you should never stop growing, never stop elevating, Because when you rise, her perception of you rises, and with it, her emotional investment deepens. The moment you stop being desirable in the world's eyes is often the moment she starts to see you differently, even if she can't explain why. And this isn't about being shallow, it's about instinct. Women are biologically wired to align themselves with the strongest, most capable partner available. It's not about money or looks alone. It's about perceived value. That value can be social influence, leadership, emotional intelligence, or physical presence. Whatever the form, it must be present and growing. This is also why ex-boyfriends suddenly become attractive again when they're seen with new women or when they level up post-breakup. The social proof becomes undeniable. If she wants him, maybe I overlooked something. It's not logic, it's female psychology. Women constantly assess the social positioning of men because, deep down, they're looking for assurance that their emotional investment is safe, secure, and socially validated. Every man must recognize that his growth is not just personal. It directly impacts his relationship dynamics. If you want her to see you as valuable, you must remain valuable, not just in private, but in the eyes of the world she lives in. Because her world is built on perception, comparison, and emotional hierarchy, and if you control your narrative within that space, you control how deeply she stays connected to you. Another major psychological trigger that few men fully grasp is what's often called the hero complex. Women want to feel safe, seen, and protected, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. This desire is ancient. Historically, women depended on men for physical protection, provision, and leadership. While times have changed, that psychological imprint remains. A woman desires a man who can be her rock, a grounded, masculine force she can lean into during chaos. But this doesn't mean she wants to be saved. It means she wants to be led by someone who doesn't need her validation to function. The hero complex is activated when a man shows strength with compassion, when he protects her without controlling her, when he listens without losing his authority, when he holds space for her emotions without drowning in them. That kind of man becomes addictive because he represents both emotional safety and masculine power. He doesn't flinch when she's upset. He doesn't try to fix every problem immediately. He just stands tall, calm, composed, and she feels his presence more than his words. That presence is the modern-day armor of a hero. And women are drawn to it on a cellular level, but here's the trap most men fall into. They confuse the hero complex with being a people pleaser. They think being nice, agreeable, and endlessly supportive is the way to a woman's heart. They bend over backward to avoid conflict. They sacrifice their own needs to make her happy, and in doing so, they lose her respect. Because deep down, women know that a man who abandons himself to please others cannot lead. He cannot protect. He cannot stand firm when things get hard. So while he may win temporary affection, he loses long-term attraction. The real hero is the man who lives by his own code. He doesn't let her mood dictate his mood. He doesn't argue emotionally. He doesn't chase. Instead, he observes, he leads, he makes decisions based on principle, not emotion. And when he gives affection, it's powerful because it's rare. It's not given to earn favor, it's given because he chooses to. That's what makes it valuable. That's what makes her trust him. Because she knows he won't collapse under pressure. She knows he won't become a different man just to avoid upsetting her. His emotional constancy becomes her safe haven. This doesn't mean being cold or distant. In fact, the best expression of the hero complex is when a man is both strong and emotionally intelligent. He knows when to comfort her, when to challenge her, and when to let her sit with her own emotions. He doesn't steal her struggle, he supports her journey, and that's the difference between a savior and a hero. A savior tries to fix her. A hero walks beside her with strength and grace. The more a man embodies this energy, the more a woman opens up. She becomes more vulnerable, more feminine, more nurturing. Why? Because she trusts him, not because he's perfect, but because he's solid, because he doesn't fold, because he makes her feel safe, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, and even spiritually. That is what every woman, whether she admits it or not, longs for. A man who can be her sanctuary in a chaotic world. So when a man embraces the role of the hero not through ego, but through presence, he becomes unforgettable. Not because he's flashy or impressive, but because he offers something rare, masculine security in a world full of emotional instability. And that, more than looks, money, or charm, is what deeply anchors a woman's heart. One of the most underestimated aspects of female psychology is the profound emotional memory women carry. Unlike men, who often compartmentalize their emotions and move on from situations quickly, women tend to hold onto emotional experiences for a much longer period. These memories aren't just stored in their minds, they're felt in their bodies. A woman can remember how a man made her feel in a particular moment with striking clarity, whether it was joy, pain, disappointment, or excitement. The way you made her feel will last far longer than what you said, or even what you did. That's because women are emotionally immersive beings. They live through feelings. Their emotions are the lens through which they interpret and interact with the world. This emotional memory is powerful. It means that every emotional impression you leave, good or bad, has a lasting effect on how she views you. If you made her feel emotionally safe, supported, and seen in vulnerable moments, she will remember that. If you made her feel ignored, dismissed, or emotionally abandoned, that too will linger in her subconscious. She may not bring it up directly, but it becomes part of the emotional data she uses to determine whether she can fully trust and surrender to you. This is why emotional trust with a woman takes time to build and seconds to destroy. Once her nervous system has recorded a pattern of instability or betrayal, her guard goes up, and it's not easy to bring it back down. Most men underestimate the power of subtle emotional moments. They think grand gestures or big apologies are what count the most. But often, it's the smallest moments that shape her emotional landscape. The way you looked at her when she was talking, the tone you used when you were annoyed, the attention, or lack thereof, you gave her when she needed it most. These details matter more than most men realize. Because women are constantly interpreting emotional cues, they are wired to detect shifts in tone, energy, and intention, not because they're trying to be difficult, but because their brains are more attuned to social and emotional nuances. This emotional memory also explains why women sometimes bring up the past during arguments. She's not just rehashing old issues to cause drama. She's trying to express that a wound was never truly healed. When she says, "Remember when you did that," she's not being petty. She's expressing that the emotional scar still exists, and unless that wound is truly acknowledged, she can't move past it. Her emotional body is still carrying the experience. That's why simply saying, "let's forget about it," rarely works with women. They can't just forget. They need to feel that it's been resolved, that it's safe to let it go. For men, the key is presence. If you want to make a lasting impact on a woman, focus less on words and more on the emotional energy behind them. Be mindful of how you make her feel in the everyday interactions. Did she feel heard? Did she feel like she mattered? Did she feel emotionally held or emotionally dismissed? These are the questions her subconscious is always answering, even when she's not consciously aware of it. When you consistently create positive emotional memories, where she feels supported, admired, and protected, she begins to associate you with emotional safety. And once that association is built, she opens up in deeper ways. She trusts more, she gives more, she invests more, because now you're not just a man, you're her emotional sanctuary. But if the opposite happens, if her emotional memories of you are laced with pain, neglect, or inconsistency, then no matter how attractive, successful, or charming you are, she will start to pull away. She may stay physically, but emotionally, she's retreating. That's why so many men are confused when their partner seems distant, even though nothing is wrong. Something was wrong. It just wasn't dealt with in a way that made her feel emotionally resolved. Another crucial point that reveals the complexity of female psychology is women's strong need for emotional congruence. What this means is that a woman doesn't just listen to what you say. She senses whether what you're saying aligns with how you truly feel. Women are highly intuitive creatures. They have an almost psychic ability to detect when something feels off. That's because, neurologically, their brains are more wired for empathy, social sensitivity, and emotional reading. So when a man says he's fine but carries tension in his face or body, she doesn't hear "I'm fine." She senses emotional disconnection. This creates a feeling of unease in her. She may not be able to explain why, but she will start to feel distant or anxious, like something is wrong. This is why emotional congruence is so important. If you say one thing but feel another, she will pick up on that contradiction and begin to lose trust. Not necessarily trust in your honesty, but in your emotional availability. She starts to wonder, why won't he open up to me? Why is he hiding something? Even if you think you're protecting her by not sharing your real feelings, what she experiences is a wall. And when a woman feels emotionally blocked out, her feminine energy begins to shrink. She withdraws, not because she doesn't care, but because she no longer feels like the emotional connection is mutual. On the other hand, when a man is emotionally congruent, when what he says matches how he feels, she relaxes. She opens up. She feels safe because she knows she's not navigating mixed signals. Emotional clarity is incredibly grounding for women. It allows them to soften, to let go of overanalyzing, and to surrender into the relationship. That's why even if you're angry or upset, expressing it honestly, without blaming or emotional volatility, is better than pretending everything is fine, because authenticity builds trust, while emotional incongruence creates suspicion. This also applies to attraction and desire. If you're suppressing your sexual energy, trying to play it cool, or hiding your desire because you don't want to come across as too forward, she'll feel that incongruence. You say you're just being friendly, but your body says otherwise, or vice versa. You say you're into her, but your energy is distant or distracted. That gap between intention and expression confuses her. It makes her question whether your interest is real or whether you're hiding something, and uncertainty is poison to feminine openness. Men who master emotional congruence tend to have the deepest, most passionate connections with women. Not because they're perfect, but because they're *real. Their words, tone, body language, and presence all align. They don't wear emotional masks. They're honest, even when it's uncomfortable. They don't try to manipulate perception. They just show up as their full, embodied selves. That rawness, that presence, is intoxicating to the feminine. It creates trust without trying. It creates attraction without effort. The real takeaway is this: women feel who you are more than they hear what you say. They are reading your energy at all times. If you're holding back, being fake, or putting on a persona, she will feel it, even if she can't logically explain it. So the more emotionally aligned you are, the more your words match your energy, the more safe, connected, and drawn to you she will feel. Emotional congruence isn't about being emotional. It's about being honest, grounded, and true to yourself in every interaction. When you embody that, she stops guessing, questioning, or doubting. She simply feels safe, and that's when her deepest feminine nature can finally emerge. A woman's desire for masculine leadership is not about control or dominance. It's about direction, decisiveness, and the ability to hold space in a way that allows her to relax into her feminine nature. In today's world, where gender roles have evolved and blurred, many men mistakenly think that stepping back, being passive, or letting her take the lead in everything is the right move. But what they don't realize is that when a woman constantly has to make all the decisions, plan everything, and carry the emotional and logistical weight of the relationship, she starts to feel overwhelmed, unseen, and emotionally abandoned. She may not say it outright, but internally she begins to feel that she's doing too much and you're doing too little. And nothing kills feminine attraction faster than emotional labor with no masculine support. Masculine leadership isn't about being a tyrant or barking orders. It's about offering structure in a way that makes her feel secure. It's about you having a vision, not just for your life, but for the shared experience between the two of you. Do you initiate plans? Do you make decisions with confidence? Do you guide conversations with purpose? Do you have a clear sense of who you are and where you're going? When a woman sees that you're grounded in yourself, that you're capable of leading and holding space for her, she begins to trust you on a deeper level. Her body relaxes. Her emotions open. She shifts out of survival mode and into surrender. This doesn't mean she wants to be powerless. In fact, a strong woman wants to be led, not because she can't lead herself, but because she wants to experience polarity. She wants to experience the dance between masculine and feminine energy, between structure and flow, between direction and creativity. If you as a man show up with strong leadership, you create the container within which she can express her most authentic self. That's when she becomes soft, radiant, nurturing, and expressive, not because she's trying to please you, but because you've created a space where that side of her can finally emerge. But leadership requires presence. It requires that you're not just physically there, but emotionally and mentally engaged. It means you don't shy away from tension, you don't avoid conflict, you don't leave things unresolved because you're uncomfortable. Instead, you face things head on, you provide emotional clarity, you say what needs to be said, you set boundaries, you act with intention. These are the traits of a man who leads from strength, not ego. Most men fall into one of two traps. The first is passivity. They defer all decisions to her, thinking this is equality, when in reality it feels like a burden to her. She doesn't want to be your mother. She wants to be your partner. She wants to trust that you can carry your share of the emotional and logistical weight. The second trap is over-control. These are men who lead from insecurity, who try to dominate, micromanage, or make everything about power. That kind of leadership repels a woman because it comes from fear, not grounded masculinity. True masculine leadership is calm, steady, and confident. It doesn't need to prove itself. It just is. It creates a sense of safety not through rules, but through consistency. A woman who feels emotionally safe under your leadership will give you more than you could ever ask for. She will be loyal, devoted, and deeply connected. But the moment she feels that she has to step into the masculine role, constantly making decisions, initiating difficult conversations, or pulling you toward purpose, she will slowly start to resent you. And that resentment kills intimacy over time. Leadership also applies in intimate moments. Women want a man who knows how to take charge, who knows how to move with confidence and intention, not in a rough or selfish way, but in a way that makes her feel desired, claimed, and safe. A man who hesitates, who seeks permission for every move, who is unsure of himself, he creates discomfort, not because he's bad, but because his uncertainty makes her feel unsafe. In intimacy, just like in life, women want to be led by a man who is attuned, confident, and in control of himself. You don't need to be perfect, you just need to be clear, know what you want, move toward it, communicate it, and stay grounded when emotions rise. That's leadership. That's what creates the kind of emotional gravity that pulls a woman closer rather than pushing her away. And it's not something you fake, it's something you become. When you embody masculine leadership in your life, women don't just respect you. They feel you. They trust you. They follow you, not because they have to, but because they want too. Validation is one of the deepest emotional needs for most women, and it's rooted in how they process connection, identity, and self-worth. While men often seek validation through action, achievement, or respect from peers, women, by nature of their emotional wiring, often look for validation through emotional presence, words, and relational cues. This doesn't mean she's weak or needy. It means that her sense of emotional safety and intimacy is built through the constant affirmation that she's seen, heard, valued, and understood. When a man understands this, when he learns how to validate a woman correctly, not with empty compliments or flattery, but with sincere, grounded recognition, he unlocks a powerful pathway to emotional intimacy and influence. Validation begins with presence. A woman can instantly feel when you're truly with her versus when you're physically there but emotionally checked out. If she's sharing something personal, vulnerable, or emotional, and your eyes drift to your phone, or your responses feel automatic, she notices. Not just mentally, she feels it. And in that moment, her system receives a message. What I'm saying doesn't matter. I'm not important. I'm alone in this. It's subtle, but over time, these small moments of emotional neglect stack up. They create a chasm of distance, even when you think things are fine on the surface. Because for a woman, feeling unseen is often more painful than being outright rejected. True validation is about reflecting back what she feels in a way that makes her feel understood. If she says, "I've been feeling so overwhelmed lately," and you respond with something like, "It'll be fine," or "You're strong, you'll get through it." You may think you're being supportive, but you're actually bypassing her emotional truth. What she's really looking for in that moment is resonance. Something like, "Yeah, I can see how much you've been carrying. That must feel exhausting." When you mirror her emotional reality without judgment or trying to fix it, she feels acknowledged. That's validation. And once she feels emotionally met, she becomes more open, more trusting, more receptive. You create space for her to be fully herself without fear of being dismissed. But validation isn't just about responding to her pain or vulnerability. It also applies to recognizing her efforts, her beauty, her energy, her essence. Most men get complacent in relationships. They stop noticing the little things, the way she did her hair, the effort she put into dinner, the way she supports you emotionally without asking for anything in return. And when a woman constantly gives but feels like her efforts go unnoticed, she starts to feel invisible. That's when resentment builds. That's when she starts to pull away, not because she doesn't love you, but because she feels unloved. A simple, sincere compliment like, "I love the way you handled that situation today," or "You're so damn beautiful when you're focused," can go a long way, not because she needs approval, but because women thrive on emotional feedback. It's how they feel connected. It's how they know that their presence is having an impact. It's how they stay emotionally anchored in the relationship. And when a man stops validating his woman, she doesn't just feel ignored. She feels unimportant. That feeling, if left unaddressed, slowly breaks down her emotional bond with you. Some men avoid validation because they think it gives away power or makes them look weak. They associate emotional affirmation with neediness or simping. But this is a misunderstanding of real masculine strength. A truly grounded man can validate a woman without losing himself. He doesn't flatter to manipulate. He doesn't praise to earn something. He affirms her because he sees her, because he appreciates her, because his presence is strong enough to hold space for another without fear of losing his own identity. In fact, real masculine power is enhanced by the ability to validate others authentically. It creates emotional loyalty, it deepens trust, it builds a kind of unshakable connection that surface-level tactics can never replicate. When a woman feels validated, when she feels that her thoughts, her emotions, her essence are recognized by a man she respects, she bonds, she opens her heart, she invests herself in the relationship at a deeper level, because now she's not just surviving in the relationship, she's flourishing in it. And here's where it gets deeper. Women also seek validation not just through words, but through actions. Do you show up when you say you will? Do you pay attention to what she cares about? Do you remember the details she mentions in passing? Do you treat her with the same presence and intentionality in private as you do in public? All of this sends a message: you matter, I see you, I'm here. That kind of validation isn't cheap. It's not transactional, it's earned. And when it's given with sincerity, it nourishes her spirit in a way nothing else can. The most powerful relationships are built on mutual validation, not ego battles. And for a man who truly wants to lead, protect, and inspire his woman, understanding the art of deep emotional validation is not optional. It's essential. Without it, the relationship may survive on the surface, but it will lack emotional depth. With it, a woman becomes more alive, more radiant, more trusting, because in that space of being seen and valued, she's no longer protecting herself. She's giving all of herself. And that's when the magic begins. So, if there's one truth you walk away with, let it be this: understanding a woman's emotional world, her need to feel seen, to be led with presence, to be validated with sincerity, is not just a strategy, it's a form of masculine mastery. When you learn how to meet her where she truly lives, beneath the surface, in the unseen emotional space, you gain access to a level of connection most men will never experience. She doesn't want perfection. She wants depth. She wants presence. She wants to feel that the man beside her knows how to handle both her fire and her softness without flinching. And when you become that man, not through manipulation, but through maturity, you don't just attract her, you anchor her. Not out of fear, but through a deep, unshakable bond that only grows stronger with time. That is the power of knowing her true psychological weaknesses, and leading with wisdom, not ego.